Good evening, viewers, and welcome to the next lecture in the Shaastra Spotlight Stay-at-Home series. Keeping up with our aim of inspiring, energizing, and helping the student community, we have with us today Mr. Prashanth Chandrasekar. Mr. Prashanth Chandrasekar is currently the Chief Executive Officer of StackOverflow and is responsible for driving StackOverflow's overall strategic direction and results. He is a proven technology executive with extensive experience leading and scaling high-growth global organizations. He has held a range of senior leadership roles at Rackspace and has deep knowledge of key technology trends, including cloud platforms like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and Alibaba Cloud. With the vision of writing the script for the future by serving developers and all technologists, he has led multiple growth strategy initiatives and has been instrumental in driving Stack Overflow towards becoming the largest community for students and professionals enthusiastic about coding by making it more diverse, inclusive, and welcoming. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Tushar. Appreciate that introduction. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, sir. We shall now
Fantastic.
proceed with the lecture.
Sounds great. Well, thank you to all of all of the IIT infrastructure, and just tremendous amount of respect for the IIT system. I was born and brought up in Bangalore, so a lot of my friends and growing up in India, it was obviously IIT is sort of the pinnacle of the education system. So just a tremendous amount of respect for all of you, both the institution as well as all the students that obviously work extremely hard to get to where you are. So thank you again for your time, and it's a real pleasure to share a few thoughts from my perspective, and we're in an amazing time from a technology standpoint in the world, and we play a very big part in that. So just happy to be here and share our story. So let me just put up very quickly some content, and then maybe Tushar, you can just for a second let me know if you can actually see what I just put up.
Yes, sir. We can see the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tushar. Okay, great. So as Tushar said, our mission, it all starts there. So you're looking at it right now, which is helping write the script of the future by serving developers and all technologists. And we really believe that drives everything that we do, right? So many of you, I'm sure, use Stack Overflow on a regular basis as you think about building software or just answering your complex questions. But it's just a resource that's truly there to democratize building next generation applications around the world. So I'll walk into some of the numbers, etc., here in a second. But Stack Overflow is one of the most trusted places for developers and technologists, and we are a top 40 global website. So everybody around the world, India is a big part of that. But we just have a tremendous user base that comes from all around the world. So let me just start out with what is Stack Overflow for those of you that may not know about us, which is, if you're a technology person, that's, more and more unlikely, but if you're a non-technologist, at least for your reference. So when developers or technologists have a coding question or a problem, they head to Stack Overflow. So, just know that because every time they go into Google, search and they type in, how do I do this in whatever language, in Python or JavaScript, the answer that's going to come back is going to be from Stack Overflow. And because they know they will find the solution, right? And it's a completely free and open forum. It's community for community, meaning it's a very, very significant, there's a tremendous amount of network effects where we have close to 120 million unique visitors every month that come to our websites and share and answer people's questions. They ask questions and they're able to collaborate. And it's for all types. It's for beginners, it's for experts, it's for professional developers, and it's really an ability for people to accelerate their learning very rapidly. And so we, in many ways, create, along with obviously educational institutions like IIT, we create the developers and a developer market as well as the technologist market, because a lot of folks are learning through our websites and being able to accelerate their contributions in the organizations they're part of, or as they think about getting their first job and so on and so forth. So that is the foundation. It's the community is the foundation of this company. And just to give you a sense again of the numbers, like I said, we have a very, very massive global reach. 120 million monthly unique visitors on all our websites. which includes, by the way, not only Stack Overflow, but includes a whole bunch of other websites on cloud technologies, on Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, DevOps, cybersecurity, software engineering concepts. You've got just a very large range of topics that we cover. And Stack Overflow out of that is 50 million. So we have 70 million on non-Stack Overflow websites, 50 million on Stack Overflow websites. On average, we see close to 150,000 new signups per month. Actually, in April was our highest sign-up month ever in the company's history. We had close to 260,000 new signups, unique signups. So this gives you a sense. After 12 years, we've been around since 2008. After 12 years, we still are very thriving, and it's a tremendous community that continues to grow. We have over 9 million registered users. 5 billion sessions in 2019, and it takes about every 15 seconds a question is asked on our platforms or on our websites. And by the way, within 15 seconds, about 45 minutes after that, you're going to get a first answer. No more than 45 minutes, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you ask a question, within 45 minutes, you will likely get an answer. That's typically that's the power of the community. And then we have 19 million questions, and that number, this is on Stack Overflow. If you look at all the Stack Exchange, it's closer to 40 million questions and about 45 million answers. And again, we're a top 40 website in the world because of so much, so many folks come to our websites every month. So this is the kind of breakdown of our company. So if you think about the community more specifically, as I just referenced, so we've got Stack Overflow that has the 50 million monthly unique visitors. Stack Exchange, which is the other websites that we have, which have about 70 technical websites that range from artificial intelligence, software engineering, quantum computing, server fault, which is all system administration and cloud topics, webmasters, DevOps, super user, you name it, like network engineering, very key topics that everybody obviously spends a lot of time learning about, especially in the computer science world and computer engineering world, or even associated fields. That's about 70 websites. And then we have over 100 additional websites on all sorts of other topics that technologists love. And this, includes business topics, work-life topics, culture, art, life. It's just amazing that, this is all formed very organically by the community. We didn't come up with these, right? The community came up with their own, based on their own interests. And there's a system through which we are able to create these and moderate, and to be able to provide an infrastructure where people can propose things, collectively come up with things. So the structure that's been built and the system, which really has worked really well for 12 years, is really thriving. So that's the 50 plus 70 million unique visitors per month. That adds up to the 120 million unique visitors to our websites that I mentioned. So India, I was right before all this COVID-19, this crisis that we're in, and I hope everybody on this lecture are staying safe wherever you are in India. I was actually in India early March. I was presenting at the Global Business Summit by the Times Group, along with the Indian Prime Minister and with Narendra Modi, and I was in New Delhi, literally. In early March, and I presented much of this information there as well, to just say that right before that is going to be we went remote right after that, and during that lecture, during that talk, I mentioned that India has the most number of visitors on Stack Overflow after the US, so it's just a tremendous number, right? And if we think about 84 million visitors from India came from India, and I just believe that's also just a small number relative to the overall potential of the community really helping each other in the country. Bangalore is our highest city. My hometown has the highest amount of traffic in the world, including US cities on Stack Overflow. So which is a fascinating statistic for us. And speaking of cities, by the way, we are seeing more and more now much more rural cities, and cities that are not necessarily like the metros, if you will, that are seeing tremendous uptick in traffic. Cities like Indore and Jaipur, etc., that are increasing in the amount of usage on our platform. So it might give us a sense of, as people think about de-urbanization and people move to smaller towns, etc., it'll be fascinating to see and track how that moves over the next many years. Every year we do a developer survey. So 2020, we just released our results 2 days ago, and we polled close to 65,000 technologists and developers from around the world. Right, so not an immaterial number. And so when we go and do that, we're able to get a really good sense of, what are the most popular mobile, programming languages and scripting languages in the US and internationally. And that shows you some of the stats on the right side and gives you a sense of, when we think about the tags in our community, and we see popularity of new programming languages like Rust that are increasing in usage. But if you look at the session tags in our community, the world tags, you see languages like Python or frameworks. Python is very high, along with JavaScript and Java. No surprises there, as you'd imagine. India is slightly different. We see things like JavaScript and Java, and kind of a different order. We do see kind of an interesting dynamic in India where a lot of back-end applications seem to still dominate in terms of software development in India versus front-end applications, which is more the theme when you think about in the US as well as other parts of the world. So there is a definite difference in the orientation and also the languages. As you can see here, there's a difference of how Indian developers and technologists spend time and what they work on versus the global population. So it's interesting. This gives you a sense of are they ahead of the curve? Are things going to change? It'll give us a clue on where things are likely to trend in India as people start looking at more of a normalized world as you think about the languages that we are seeing across the ecosystem. And then when we think about some of the highest growing tags in India, that support obviously mobile is very, very huge in India. And we see things like Swift UI that are really rapidly increasing, Android Studio, TensorFlow, obviously with its roots from Google, Flutter, Blazor, etc. And all this to say that there's a lot to do, right? In the Indian, there's the Indian coders coming from India, learning how to code when I was probably about 12 years old or 10 years old. When my dad got a PC from Hong Kong, and my first program was written in Logo, and then moved on to Basic, and then obviously C++ and so on. I'll tell you that we are seeing there's actually an interesting development that in the globe the average age of developers are actually going lower and lower. So people are starting much earlier writing code, right? So maybe I'm the exception, but people are writing code at an earlier age, and India still seems to be trending slightly later in terms of when they actually start writing code. So there's an opportunity for India to include computer science education much earlier in the curriculum, which is almost counterintuitive if you think about it, because we're known as the country where technology is really built in many ways, right? So just thought I'd share some stats that might be interesting to you. And then as we think about the world going remote, Stack Overflow is at the center, right? So we are the single place where technologists and developers are really collaborating on our community, public community. That's why we have 120 million people there, and they are sharing all sorts of topics and answers and questions and answers. And then we also have an ecosystem of products that help with companies and users as they work remotely, offline. So including universities, by the way. So we have several universities that leverage our product called StackOverflow for Teams that allows them to collaborate internally with, it's a private version of our public community interface. So it's exactly the same mirror image, but they're able to do things that are more private for the organization within the university or a company and so on. And that's why we believe Stack Overflow is sort of in the middle of this, because we're able to create communities externally in a public way, and we're able to create communities internally within big systems like IIT, or with companies like Microsoft, who's a big customer of ours, or companies like Bloomberg and other big, very large enterprises that are customers of ours. So our products going into that, so beyond the community, which is the foundation, and really because all the world's developers and all the world's technologists spend so much time on our websites, we have that as a foundation. And on top of that, we've built an ecosystem of products that allows students like you to learn very rapidly on various programming languages like I just talked about. So it's really being democratized about that. We have products that help you find your first job as a technologist. If you're looking to get employed by a great employer, we have all the big employers that advertise their jobs on our website. Once you start let's say you start a startup, which many of you might be thinking about, if you want to promote your product, we have obviously a big advertising business that allows you to then showcase your product directly on our website, and again, 120 million people are able to see that, and really, you have massive exposure. And we have all the big tech companies again that advertise on our websites, like the Amazons and the Microsofts of the world. And then we have our team, what we call our Teams product, which is the private version of our public community, which I just mentioned, which allows people to, that's our SaaS product that allows people to build communities internally and share knowledge internally within companies and organizations. So that's really that ecosystem, right? And you look at these 4 boxes here, if you focus on the 2 that are in the top side of this slide, the community, there's this virtuous cycle that we've created, which is, it starts with the community, which is the broad reach that you see in the top left. And the knowledge is free, and we have 120 million unique visitors per month, and they all are sharing questions and answers. And all those folks then give back to the community. People are asking questions, they're answering them, of course. And then we have this relevance that we are trying to establish by the advertising business I just mentioned. So developers and technologists are able to discover. If you go work for a big company, you will then also use Stack Overflow, because you're going not only using community at that point, but you are learning about new technologies through the ads and the engagement that we have on our websites and the sub communities. And then finally, for if you're within a company, you're trying to collaborate within your organization, you're using Teams to make sure that you're building and working faster and really being able to retain knowledge and share and collaborate within your company with our Teams product. So the 2 top items of the community are the foundation, and then we've got these products of Teams, advertising, and talent, our 3 products that are really kind of finished, completing the circle, if you will. And that creates that virtuous cycle where they all sort of thrive, and you connect the dots, inside and outside organizations. So that's what's so powerful about what we've created. Our customers, by the way, we have a tremendous number of enterprises. So, we work with all the top guys, right? Microsoft and Amazon and Bloomberg and Expensify and FactSet and Goldman Sachs and McKinsey and you name it. And then all the developers and technologists around the world visit our website every day. So I can tell you, or our team can tell you, exactly how many people from any Indian technology company is visiting our website. So I can tell you how many from Wipro are visiting and what tags they're looking at. They're looking at Python tags or JavaScript tags. Similarly, any other Indian company, could be Flipkart or anybody. We have just a tremendous number of users, and that's the one on the right, which shows you that every big company has obviously got users on our website. And doesn't matter big or small. In fact, it's just users across the world, just given the large numbers that we work with. And then ultimately, what we are trying to be is an indispensable part of the tech community's workflow, right? So we've integrated with Slack. You might have heard of Slack as the chat ops capability. We've integrated with Okta, which is the second icon that you see there. We've integrated with GitHub Enterprise. I'm sure many of you use GitHub to share code. We've integrated with Microsoft Teams. We've integrated with Jira. That's the arrow blue item that you see on the top right. And so the point is that we are already part of the workflow because people go to Google, find an answer. But through the combination of our communities and our products, we want to be even more indispensable and really be there for you to get the right answer at the right time. Meaning, let's say that you're testing your code in a test environment, and it throws an error in a CI/CD or continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline. And then we are able to produce a piece of code from the community, a Python piece of code, because that is relevant to your error. And it gives you a piece of code and also gives you a piece of information from internally within the company. It could be a piece of a script, or it could be an answer that relates to the problem you've encountered, and then allows you to solve your problem right then and right there. And that's through our Teams product. And that's the vision that we have in terms of where we're going. And that's why we already have this great usage on our websites, and people visit, obviously, as you can see, many times a week. But we want to make it even more indispensable and useful to people. All right, so that's very briefly the company's goals and what we're trying to do in our products. I joined the company about 8 months ago as the new CEO. Prior to that, the company has been around, for 12 years, and I'm here to effectively transform the company into a SaaS company and continue to, on the foundation of a thriving community. So it's very important for us to be very inclusive and global in our perspective. And just given my own background, I just have a lot of deep, empathy for the fact that the world is all, trying to really progress very rapidly from a digital transformation perspective. And young folks like all of you are looking to enter at a rapid rate and really accelerate your own learning. And so we really want to be useful to all of you, and that's why we exist, and that's why we love what we do. So our team is, we're based in Europe as well as in the US, obviously, and we have offices in New York, we have offices in Germany, we have offices in London, we have offices in Austin, Texas. And our team is highly distributed. 80% of our product engineering team is remote. 60% of our marketing team is remote. 40% of our overall company is remote. And is as in like pre-COVID, and after COVID, of course, 100% of our company is remote. So we're all working from various home locations from around the world, but working very seamlessly because we've been adopting remote culture for a very long time in our company. So that's a brief overview, and I'm happy to take any questions that any of you have. So thank you, Tushar. Back to you.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful lecture. We now have a few questions gathered from the audience. First, in the current scenario with lockdowns imposed around the world, there's an increase in the number of companies utilizing software as a service product such as Stack Overflow for Teams. Has this surge posed any challenges initially? And if so, how has Stack Overflow gone about tackling these?
Yeah, no, excellent question. So absolutely, we have seen a surge in our community as well as our products, right? So I'll hit the community first. I'll talk about it first. So all of last year, we had close to 140,000 new signups on average per month in our community, right? In March of this year, that number rose to 180,000 new signups, unique signups for that 1 month. In April, we saw the number increase even further to 260,000 new signups. So we saw a significant surge. So just think about that for a second. 260,000 new signups from around the world. And this is 12 years after we were founded. So clearly, a couple of reasons why that happened. One is, of course, some of the lockdown, the COVID-19 elements, for sure. And then there's also, we released something called dark mode. So for those of you that enjoy dark mode, if you're sitting in a dark room and coding away, we released that on Stack Overflow, and that was massively popular, and we just received a lot. That was one of our top-rated features, and people just love that. So in order to be able to accommodate that sort of traffic, we have a highly efficient architecture. We have a great architecture team. We've actually published our architecture publicly, so you can go and take a look at it to say how efficient it is to handle that amount of traffic. And then when we think about movement to the cloud, we use Microsoft Azure very closely, and our community runs actually in a co-location in a data center that we have our own servers on that. But we have a combination for our products. We have Microsoft Azure. So on the team side, we also saw a spike in demand, and we closed, some tremendous number of new enterprise companies on our Teams product, Stack Overflow for Teams. And primarily because all the companies, like you referenced, are thinking about remote work, and they all have now carved out collaboration budgets. And those budgets are to procure tools like Stack Overflow for Teams, so they can all work remotely, whether that's universities or that's companies. They're all doing things remotely, so they want to use Stack Overflow for Teams. And we have scaled that architecture again using sort of a very, very competent architecture team on the cloud, as well as through our co-location facility, a colo environment. So yeah, a lot of preparation and stress testing and making sure that the environment can hold up.
The next question. Queries by programmers have evolved from being just about programming languages to now, where there are questions about software frameworks, cloud services, and development and operations. How important do you think it is for current developers to have a working knowledge of such topics apart from their programming skills?
Yeah, excellent question. So, my time right before Stack Overflow, I spent 7 years at Rackspace. Rackspace is, has a big presence in India. We bought a company called Tricore as well, and it's based in Noida. So at Rackspace, my biggest contribution there was to help build the cloud services business around AWS, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and that is now very, that is the growth driver for Rackspace, right? So one of the reasons why my presence here at Stack Overflow is why I actually joined the company was because there's that exact point that you mentioned. The world is converging, technologies are converging, so it's not just about learning how to code in Python or Rust, etc. It's full stack developers, people that are thinking about it from an infrastructure perspective, platform perspective. Those worlds are converging, right? So you have to be knowledgeable about cloud technologies and DevOps tool sets. And if you think about the tools that you need to learn, it's cloud platforms on the IaaS side. You're thinking about using a Git repository like a GitHub or GitLab. You're thinking about using monitoring or logging tools or CI/CD tools like Splunk or CircleCI or Jenkins, etc. And then you're using real-time collaboration tools like Slack or ChatOps tools, right, like Microsoft Teams. And then you're using knowledge sharing tools like Stack Overflow for Teams to tie it all together to make sure you're sharing knowledge. So that entire ecosystem, so definitely people need to broaden their view beyond just, Python, right? Because the world is like, you need to know all those elements of what I just described to be able to be highly effective and productive as a programmer.
So the next question. It has been observed that beginners tend to ask questions that either don't fit the expected format or have already been asked on Stack Overflow. Contributors then either close the question too quickly or just skip it. This might be practical, but in a way, it tends to discourage beginners. How do you think novices should go about getting a hang of Stack Overflow in general?
Yeah, great question. This has to do with one of our priorities this year, which is about community engagement and inclusion. And the whole point here is, how do we make sure that, and I mentioned this earlier on in the slides, is the website was built with this this foundation and this this system and this algorithm that is very binary in the spirit of computer science. It's right or it's wrong, right? 0 or 1. And that those answers are, while it can be, they're very effective because like you get like the right answer all the time. Which is why you see when you go to a Google question and answer, you ask a question in a Google search, you get an answer from Stack Overflow because it's always right. But the downside of that is that it can be harsh for beginners, because beginners can come and ask a question and they can get shut down, and we can't control completely. But at the same time, it does happen, right? And it has happened historically, and so that can be very harsh for new folks. And so what we have done is that we have made this a priority to make sure that people feel a lot more welcomed in the community by doing a few things practically. So very recently, we launched something called the Unfriendly Robot. The Unfriendly Robot literally goes and tags unfriendly comments around and looks at people that are doing things that are not necessarily productive for beginners. And literally, it's an AI ML technology that we launched, and there's a public blog post about it from about a month ago that you can go read all about it. And that goes and does that automatically. Separately, the mechanism through moderators are there to make sure that they are moderating behavior through the community and making sure that people are being nice to each other and so on. Thirdly, we're experimenting with new things. Like about 4 months ago, we said you also get a decent number of points for asking great questions. So this doesn't have to just be answers. If you also encourage people to ask questions versus just putting people down or downloading folks, etc. That's encouraged. Separately, we're evaluating whether to provide the opportunity for people to, when people download an answer, but they can only download an answer if they're able to provide rationale for why they've downloaded. So the person that's getting downloaded can actually learn from the experience and say, okay, here's why he's being or she's being downloaded. And then finally, we're also doing subtle things like allowing people to even just say thank you for an answer, right? Just to be more humanistic about the experience, which historically has never been part of the system. So we're doing many things to. We have a long way to go in transparency, but I would say there are many definitely efforts underway to improve it. And our most recent developer survey, the 2020 developer survey, said year over year, people felt 15% more welcome, 15% more welcome this year than they did last year. So if you look at our results, so we made some progress, long way to go, but it's a step in the right direction.
So, Stack Overflow has established itself as an evolving community of developers known for collaboration and knowledge exchange. However, do you think it is possible that some changes to the current core structure, while having their advantages, might not go down well with existing users?
I'm sorry, so existing, so can you further expand that question, Tushar, just a little bit?
Yeah, so if while you try to evolve as a platform,
I
do
see.
you think it is possible that some changes might not be well received by your experienced or existing users?
Yeah, understood. Yeah. So I think what the question is alluding to is we have a power user base called the meta users, right? So they're called the meta users or the meta community. And that community is very important when you start a company. When we have a core group of folks that are highly passionate about what the community system should be, and we've worked with that community, that meta community, for many years. And what I think our goal is to make sure that not only is that meta user community very important for us to go and build the next generation set of features in our community, but also expand input into non-meta users, from input from non-meta users, so that we are holistic in our approach about, to the point, the question previous to this one, which is how do you be welcoming? So it's an interesting challenge of saying, how do you take what has worked so far with a core group of folks, and then how do you also expand it to new next generation developers that could range all the way from 15 years old to 25 years old, folks that are in your age bracket, that are coming out from college or entering college, and are also the world's developers of the future, right? So it's important for us to take both perspectives. So we're becoming a lot more holistic about how we gather this input from our meta user base as well as from the broader base, and we have different mechanisms to do that. In our meta users, we have and our moderator councils, etc. We have continued to invest in that to make sure that the feedback loops are very rapid on those topics, and that we have a level of engagement that they understand why we're doing what we're doing, and they are very much, they want the same things that we all want, which is like, we are trying to, make this a huge, prevalent community and beyond what it already is, and to help each other. And the core DNA is shared across. It doesn't matter whether it's meta or the broader group, which is the ability and the inclination to share information that everybody can benefit from, right? So that developers love sharing what they work in. That's why the open source community is so big, and that's what unites all the user bases.
While other platforms for discussion on topics like programming are established, none are as well established and well known as Stack Overflow. What, in your opinion, sets Stack Overflow apart?
Yeah, so I think that it goes back to my earlier point of, the fact it comes down to the foundation of the community, right? It all starts and ends there, which is the fact that the DNA is all about sharing information, being very democratic, and helping your fellow technologists around the world accelerate. Because programming, for those of all of you who have done it, it can be quite frustrating. Because like you can be stuck, and you can really, I've experienced it, when I was growing up and when I code, and it's just it can be frustrating. So the question is, how do you alleviate that? How do you prevent context switching? How do you help people go faster? Because it's all about efficiency. It's all about how productive can you be? And that unites, again, the DNA is very consistent across the community. And what sets the community apart in many ways is that the system that's been created, like the algorithm of upvotes and downvotes and badges, and the Q&A system, and the meta community, and and the ecosystem of products, and that those virtual cycles, that over time, that system has worked. It just has worked. While it's not perfect, to your earlier point, Tushar, with your questions, it has worked in that it produces a very specific and correct answer at the right time when you need it. And there's nobody else that does that. Everywhere else, you have to go and peruse, find, if you're in a repo, you're trying to look for code that might help you, etc. But by going into a Google search engine and saying, how do I do X, Y, Z in Python, and returning an answer, or in Rust, or you name it, it's all the world's languages, one place for you to get all your answers to any technical problem that you might be encountering. There's us to be able to do that. And that's why I think that has set us apart. And with just our principles of making sure that, we stay true to the community over time, and that's endured over the many years.
So, could you tell us a bit more about any collaborations or partnerships Stack Overflow has made with other organizations in recent times?
Yeah, so it is. There have been a few different partnerships that we've done on a few different dimensions, right? So from our community standpoint, let me just start there, because obviously we are living in very, very unprecedented times with regards to the health crisis and with regards to the economic crisis that's underway and the recession and globally. And you're also seeing obviously all the riots in the U.S. Which are underway at the moment. So it's absolutely just a tremendous amount of stress across the world. So what we wanted to do is do our part, because we have communities we have conversations going on right now in our medical science community, in our biology community, that are all about COVID-19, by the way. So these are academics and people from the scientific community that are actually in there exchanging information on COVID-19. And so we inherently had these discussions happening in our community. And so what we did is we partnered with many organizations like IBM with their Call for Code initiative, where they have, along with a group of institutions, are building the next generation of apps to think about pandemics and how do we solve problems from a digital perspective. So we partnered with IBM this past month, 2 months ago. We also have partnered with the World Health Organization, so they can actually share, all the efforts that they're doing through our outlets, through our podcasts, through our massive newsletter. Our podcasts and our blog, for example, gets visited a million users a month. So we wanted to use our voice to be able to do that. And then we've got several other more local initiatives like Pursuit, which is an initiative where we're helping underprivileged folks who are in the criminal justice system come out of that and be able to train them as it relates to technology and allowing them to learn coding so they can actually go and become productive citizens. And then there's a few more that we're thinking about in the future. So we've the community aspect that we talked about is actually initially was proposed by Google, and then we decided that it was going to be the medical science community and the biology community was all done organically, and we have a large medical community that they brought to the table as well as introduced to our community. So they're all there right now talking about how to solve this problem of COVID-19. So those are some examples on the community side. On the team side, we have partnered heavily with Microsoft. So we integrated with Microsoft Teams and Microsoft with GitHub, which is a Microsoft product. They bought that company a few years ago. GitHub Enterprise integrates with Teams as well, Stack Overflow for Teams. We also partnered with Okta from a security identity management perspective. We partnered with Slack. All of you probably using Slack. So Slack is integrated with Stack Overflow for Teams because, again, we use it internally very heavily. And then we also partnered with Jira. Jira is an Atlassian product, which is obviously allowing you to, from a project management perspective. So that's those are, some of the partnerships that we're conducting. Those are mostly product integrations, so that again, you're not, being distracted and not context switching as you think about what you're doing with your work every day.
Before you, the CEO of Stack Overflow was its co-founder, Joel Spolsky. So could you tell us a bit more about your transition and initial days at Stack Overflow as the CEO?
Yeah, so Joel, amazing founder, right? So he started the company along with another gentleman called Jeff Atwood back in 2008. And many of you, I'm sure, have followed Joel or Jeff and his blog, etc., over the many years. And over the past couple of years, Joel decided that as he saw us really building on the community and really saying, how do we create the next generation set of SaaS products, he decided to go and bring on an external CEO. And so they conducted a very large scale search. And, after a couple hundred people that they interviewed, they landed with me. And I started in October of 2019. So the initial, few months it's just been amazing. Joel and I meet every week. I'm just very fortunate that he still wants to spend time, and he obviously cares very deeply about the company. But I really think of him as an advisor and somebody that I can really bounce off ideas, and he's got great perspective on things that have been tried previously. And so he's a great, from that standpoint. I really enjoy my conversations with him because he's got such a deep context on the topic at hand. And then the rest of the management team that was in place while I joined has also been tremendous in terms of welcoming me and really embracing in many ways how do we do things differently in the context of transforming this company into a SaaS company or software as a service company in the future. And that's really one of my primary missions as I come here. Obviously help the community really thrive, but on top of that, how do we build a very scalable SaaS business so that ultimately this is an entity that is an institution that lasts forever. So that's really the goal, and we're 100% aligned. Joel and I and the board and everybody, and that's why I'm on board and very excited to be here.
So having led the managed public clouds business at Rackspace and currently overseeing the Stack Overflow for teams, what advice would you give to budding startups who are looking to utilize such technologies in today's situation?
Yeah, no, I mean, great question, right? So I think there's never been a time when you can actually start, a company very quickly. You can get, there's debates about whether it's expensive or not, but there's a tremendous. I mean, we just live in a world that is everything is digital. Digital transformation is not not a flash in the pan concept, right? It's here to stay for a couple of decades. If you think about all the traditional industries that have to become digitized and now are being fast forwarded into this world in many ways, right? Because if anybody had any kind of, if they were dragging their feet previously, there's no choice. We're all sitting at home and we have to figure out how to work in a digital environment. So in that context, the opportunity is just massive. It's just massive for new companies to create category defining companies. And if you look at history and you look at business history, the world's best companies were developed in times of strife and disruption and economic kind of recessions like we are in right now. So the time is right now for you IITians who are thinking about what do you want to build, because history tells us this is the time when the next biggest company is going to get built, and we'll know about it like in public maybe about 6 years, 7 years from now, and everybody will be like, oh, this company got created in 2020. Yes, and the great news for IITians is that it's not it is not limited to any part of the world. Right now, the world is highly democratic in terms of its ability to share knowledge, and we are a big part of that story with Stack Overflow. And so I would say just go do it, is my advice, right? So like you just have the number of tools, cloud technologies, free trials, that entire end-to-end workflow that I mentioned around cloud technologies, monitoring technologies, code repositories, all those things exist today, and many of them exist for free. So you can, including our own community, right? Stack Overflow. So all those things you have at your disposal, that really you're only limited by your imagination and what you can actually go build. So go pick a problem that is a big problem and just go solve it using technology.
So that's all. Thanks a lot, sir, for the wonderful lecture and some great answers. We also thank our audience for staying with us, and stay tuned for more updates on the Shaastra Spotlight Stay at Home series. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tushar. Thank you, IIT, for having me. All the best.